Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast today. This episode is brought to you by Waypoint TV. Waypoint is way more than a website. It is a place where producers can upload one time, and it goes to all of these incredible platforms like Amazon Fire TV, Roku, Samsung, Amazon, Chromecast, Xbox. Gosh, so many. And you got apps available for your phone in the Apple Store and also your Android store as well. They've just put in a live feature where you go there, you click the live button, and shows will just start playing. You don't even have to think about it anymore. You just go there, hit the live button, go back to whatever you were doing, leave it on in the background, and you can discover some new shows, or maybe one of your old favorites will come on there too. You can go to waypointtv.com, or you can search for it in the App Store of your choosing and install it on whatever device you use and watch it completely for free. We have a couple other quick things to tell you. Started a podcast website, a dedicated website for this podcast. It's very easy to find. TomRowlandPodcast.com. That's TomRowlandPodcast.com. TomRowlandPodcast.com. And you know, it's a place where you can get all the different episodes. We'll do some different writing over there. One thing that's very cool about the website right now that I really like is that you can access the book club from the website. Now, I didn't really like reading when I was a kid. In fact, it was it was torture for me. But I do like it much later in life. I love it, in fact. And I have been reading a ton, and it really helps that most of these books are available on audio, and I can be listening to the books while I'm driving, do a lot of driving, so it's a great time to listen to books. If you would like to support the podcast, you can buy the book through the website, and it will take you to Amazon. We're simply an Amazon affiliate, and you'll get to your own account. The book costs exactly the same, and you'll be able to support the podcast. So if you'd like to read the same books that we're reading or some of the books that the guests have suggested as some of their most important books in their life, go to TomRowlandPodcast.com, look at Book Club, and you can maybe find a new book. All right, today's show is with Peter Miller. Peter Miller has done lots of stuff. You may know him from his television show Bass to Billfish, and he's starting a new show called Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller. Before that, he was 3-time world sailfish champion with his team, the Get Lit. And before that, he was a male model. I think he's the only person that I've ever met that came to being a professional fisherman through the ranks of being a professional male model. That is an interesting path, and so we definitely had to talk about it. But we talked about so many other things, Peter's work ethic, how he has managed to make all of this work out, and just an interesting character. Really like Peter, good guy, and really excited to bring you this episode with Peter Miller of Uncharted Waters.
Sure enough, one of the guys, Ray Combs, with REC Media, he's like, you just let me know, Peter. He goes, anybody can do a show, but getting it paid for is the hardest part because there's great fishermen. And I tell everybody all the time that you can be the best fisherman in the world. There's people that are way better than me. Like, I never sell myself as the best, not even close. Like, I know there's a million guys that are way better than me. I'm not the best host. There's a million hosts that are way better than me. But when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, how do you sustain it if you finally do it? And sustaining it is the hardest part. You know, you got to be able to talk to the sponsors, negotiate, give them what they need, move with the ebb and flow of what's needed in the marketing world, content, photos, videos, appearances, blog posts, websites, Instagram, social, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. So you got to kind of figure out what they need, and that's really what it's all about. I'm Peter Miller, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
And we are live. I'm sitting here at another Miami condo. The last one I was looking over the city and the ocean at Bouncer Smith's house. Now I'm sitting here with Peter Miller.
I'm
Peter
excited.
Miller of Basta Billfish, and your new show. You got a new show, right?
Yeah, it's called Uncharted Waters on the Discovery Channel. And it's one of those things that was like a natural progression, kind of moving along from, doing certain things in the fishing industry and then starting to travel internationally. It's something I've always wanted to do. So I'm really excited.
Yeah. Well, you've traveled internationally before in a previous career, right?
Yes. Yes, I was a male model.
You were?
Yeah, I was fishing to support my male modeling. Or I should say I was male modeling to support my fishing. I was basically doing jobs, traveling all over the world and getting booked in, Japan and Italy and Germany and Sweden and, all over South and Central America. And that would allow me to go fishing, and I'd go buy bait and fuel, and, I'd have the marina set up, where they pull a boat out, put it on a cradle, put it inside. And so I had a really nice setup, and I fished. Anytime I wasn't working, I fished. So sometimes I'd fish 5-7 days a week. I mean, the entire week.
And so the modeling gig was seasonal or what? You would just go for a weekend or what?
No, it was pretty regular. I mean, sometimes I'd go to New York and I go on castings and auditions for 3-4 jobs a day. I would like audition for, and I would do 4 or 5 days of that. So I would go on 20 auditions in a single week. So it's kind of like fishing, like how many bites are you going to get? So at the end of it, I would, at the end of the week, hopefully I'd get a call back, book the job. And then after a while, I started, picking up a lot of stuff. I had success right when I got into it. And I thought to myself, wow, this is actually something I could do. And I did it for 20 plus years.
20 years. And how did that start for you? How did you think that you had an opportunity as a male model?
I went to college, University of Miami, and this girl that I went to school with, I saw her coming out of a club one night, believe it or not, back in 1990 maybe, on Miami Beach. And she goes, "Hey, Peter, you should try modeling." I'm like, "No, it's not for me. I got other plans." But, I wanted to wear a suit and carry a briefcase and have a laptop computer. Back then, the laptops weighed like 600 pounds. It was like carrying like a mainframe with you, like on a dolly. And I got with this printing company, and I started doing sales. And then I saw her like 6 weeks later maybe. And she's like, "Peter, you really should come in." I'm like, "All right." So I show up in a suit. And she's like, "Peter, you didn't have to wear a suit for the meeting." I'm like, "This is what I wear." She's like, to this day, she doesn't believe me. She thinks I actually wore a three-piece suit with a briefcase to go to like a modeling agency. And she's like, "You're really overdoing it." And I said, "Well, what do you think?" She goes, "I got a casting for you. Just try it out." And I went on this casting and I booked it like immediately. And then I went on another one and I booked it, which means you get the job. And, some of the pay rates were like $750 for the day. The next one was $1,500 for the day. It was a 2-day. It was $3,000. And I was like, wait a second. There's something to this. I remember about a week later writing or asking my boss at the printing company how to approach a resignation letter. He was like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, I'm thinking about doing something else." And so I wrote a letter of resignation and handed it to him. He's like, "I'm sorry to see you go, Peter, but good luck. I'm sure this is going to be a lot more lucrative for you." I think at the time in my printing company, I was making $19,000 a year. And I was getting a commission from 2% to 10%. And I was like 21 years old. And I was like, man, I'll never get that 10%. No one's buying at those prices. So anyway, I left that company, started doing the modeling stuff, and it just panned out.
Yeah, you're making $3,000 a weekend, making 19 a year. Seems like pretty good idea.
Yeah, one of the first ones was in the Bahamas. And the client said to me, he goes, "Peter, we can't pay you," which, it's pretty classic in any business. "We can't pay you, but we're going to take you to the Bahamas and we're going to give you as much clothes as you can handle." So it was a newer company. And I went to the Bahamas and we were, 6 guys, 6 girls, having great dinners on the beach, on the boat, fishing, this and that. And I was like, wow, that's it. I'm fully in. And I started really enjoying it. And then, of course, traveling. I spent 3 months in Japan on a contract. Basically, like every week I was doing jobs and photo shoots all over South and Central America. Those are some of my best jobs. In Italy, I did like suit campaigns in Italy, like billboards and like all these stores and billboards for Budweiser, and Tiffany's Jewelry, international like billboards and ads. And some of it was really cool, really lucrative, and big commercials for like, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, big paying residual jobs. And I was like, wow. But in any business, it kind of fluctuates. So you'll have like amazing years. It's like fishing. You have great days and then great years, and then you have really slow years. So it's like kind of cyclical. But overall, it was a really good career and allowed me to take care of my family, raise kids, have a great house, and just enjoy things.
Did it? Was there a look that was popular that time that you just fit into, or did you have to change your look at all? Or
gosh, I never thought we'd be talking about this today, but
well, I'm interested now.
Yeah, well, honestly, my look. I mean, you see these other model guys, right? You walk in, I'm 6 foot. At the time, I was like 165, 170. That was pretty normal, good shape. And then you'd see these guys that were like 6'2", and they're real chiseled, and the cheekbones and the jawline and like real like Zoolander stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, that guy's so going to book it over me. I mean, this is ridiculous. I'm like this, okay shaped kid, whatever. And I go up and the clients are like, all right, tell us why you think we should book you. And all of a sudden I realized like, I'm a pretty damn good salesman.
That's it.
I was selling myself. I'm like, I would look at their stuff and I'm thinking, what are they interested in? I'm like, well, what are you guys trying to do? They're like, well, we got dogs, and we got girls, and we got boats. And I'm like, well, I've been fishing for 20 years and, I got 3 dogs at home. And then before I knew it, I became the salesman. And I was always a salesman as a kid. I grew up in New York. So I was like shoveling driveways, knocking on doors, like washing cars, shoveling driveways, mowing lawns. So I was always a little bit of a hustler. And I'm never satisfied with like mediocrity. I'm always trying to get to that next level. So I went to everything. Most of the guys are like, oh, I don't have time for that casting. I don't have time for this or that. And I went on everything. I'd go on 5 castings a day.
And then it's the sales that get you the jobs. I would imagine that's not what I would think. I would think that they would have something in their mind that they're looking for. Not that guy, not this guy. This guy has the look we're looking for. But you could go in there and you could actually be like, sway their opinion.
It was a combination. I had decent pictures. I had decent teeth. My skin was clear. That helped. And, I worked out. So it's like, you had good hair, good teeth, good skin, you had a good smile, and you could sell. And my pictures weren't amazing. It didn't look like $1 million picture, whereas the guys next to me would have like Versace and Armani campaigns and this and that. And I'd have like the local store picture, but it worked. And my forte was really working with kids, dogs, women, like families, like boyfriend, girlfriend, snuggly, kind of laughy, smiley, which is called commercial. That's a commercial style. And then you had your fashion. And every now and then I'd break into that fashion thing. The fashion guys were making great money, very consistent, and they'd fly and do a 10-day job for this certain rate. But what I found myself doing was booking these other jobs, like advertising jobs, where you would smile and snuggle and dogs and this and that and be very interactive commercial style. So you might only work 1 or 2 days, but the advertising budget for those jobs were a lot bigger. So you're almost like you'd like slay little dragons with these little commercial jobs where these guys were like, doing 10-day jobs. Don't get me wrong. I would have done those 10-day jobs all day long, but that's how I did it. And I supported my family with that.
And then you have to be, I know 2 male models. I've turned my phone back on because now I know 2 male models. The other one I just met this summer. I want to show you this dude. So
another male model? What?
Yeah.
I don't believe it.
Well, you won't believe it when I show you what he looks like. This dude right here, leave everything and wander. If anybody follows my Instagram, you saw me running with him in the Monument Valley. He's got a giant Forrest Gump beard. He looks just like Forrest Gump.
Huh.
But apparently, I got to find...
I could tell already. Like, I see that look, and I know exactly what jobs he was booking.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
He's got a giant beard. Well, he books all the jobs with the beard.
Oh,
and I'm like, this is something straight out of Zoolander. Like,
yeah.
Oh no, it was a comic character.
It was completely everything we did was Zoolander-ish.
Yeah, but he has this big beard, and he's got this one video of him like walking through the woods, and it's snowing, and it's getting all caught in his beard, and he's got this really long hair. So I didn't know that he was a male model at the time. Like, I thought he was a homeless guy.
I still can't believe we're talking about this, but go ahead.
So I thought he was a homeless guy.
Yeah.
Take my son to the Monument Valley. He saw Forrest Gump. He loves that movie. And we're going through the Monument Valley. He goes, Dad, we got to stop right where Forrest Gump stopped and said, I think I'll go home now. And then we got to do it. We're going to get a picture made there. And so we stop there, and there's like a whole bunch of people there. It's like a thing to do. And so he looks across the street, and he goes, Dad, there's Forrest Gump right there. And I was like, that does look like Forrest Gump. We should get our picture made with him. Surely that's what he's here for. Like, I thought that's how he was making money. And turns out he'd never seen Forrest Gump. His girlfriend, who was also a model, had seen it. And so my son goes over there and says, hey, could we get our picture made with you? And he's like, sure. Okay. Well, this guy, we've come to find out later, he gets his picture made for a living.
Yeah.
So we're running. I'm like, let's run. And they take a video, and And I'm like, come on, man, you knew you look like Forrest Gump. And he's like, no, I don't even, I've never even seen it. She told me. And so he runs up and gets the red hat. We puts it on. We run up through there. And then later we start, figuring out who he is because we got his card and he got our stuff. Yeah. And then we interact. It turns out that he's a full-on male model. And he has this thing that he does with his girlfriend that it's leave everything and wander. So apparently he was one of these guys that was getting the 10-day jobs, big-time modeling gigs. They made some money, and they just sold everything they have. They have this pickup truck and a little camper in the back of the pickup truck, and they're just wandering all over the United States, and they're having these really cool things. It's LEAW, leave everything and wander. But just interesting guy.
That is cool, and I find that a lot of the people in the industry are very creative. They're people that had to be creative because it was all about lighting and it was about photography. It was about getting the shot and, angles and everybody in that industry. If you were a hustler, you could come out of that and make a living doing something else, whether it was photography, video, editing, this, that, picking the right thing, advertising campaigns, coming up with ideas. And I find a lot of these guys are quietly pretty damn successful at what they do. And like you learn so much in the business. I grew up in the TV business. My dad was a carpenter for Good Morning America. So as a little kid, I would go to New York. I'd sweep studios at 10 years old. And I saw how it all worked. I'd go in the control room and I'd see everybody. All right, camera one, let's do a close up. All right, she's about to cry. Let's pan. Coming in tight on the cry. And I was like, whoa. I used to get goosebumps. I was like, this is how they do it. All right, camera 3. And it would switch off and it was like snap, snap, snap. And I thought, this is pretty cool. So that's all I knew growing up. I was in studios. I was fishing as a kid. Then I started modeling for money. Then we started winning fishing tournaments. And that's when I quit modeling and I started doing mainly the fishing tournaments. And then I started my show. Then I started another show.
Well, you have to be one of the only male models to support their fishing habit through modeling. I can't imagine that's a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive, as you know, to fish.
Well, it's super expensive.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was a single engine, so that helped. But, I bought my first boat, shortly after I started, and I was kite fishing. I was kite fishing in 89, 90 on my little 25-foot, center console with my buddy and by myself quite a bit. And I was actually in the printing business at the time still, and I was modeling. I was kind of back and forth. So I had the brick phone. You remember the brick Motorola with the giant antenna? Oh, yeah. And I remember being offshore, and I would get a call. Peter, what's up? Your client called. They want this deal. I said, that's perfect. Yeah, I already called them. We're going to deal with it tomorrow. Wrapping it up now, and I'd be on the boat and I would try to be really quiet, pretend like I wasn't fishing, and sometimes I'd have to come back to the office. They're like, you're really sunburnt and your suit's wrinkled. They're like, what's going on? And I'd have to make up all these excuses as to why I was sunburnt and wrinkled and smelly in a really quiet office. I come in like kind of coming in buzzed past your parents as a kid, like a teenager, trying to be like real discreet and cool, but they're like, what's up, man?
It reminds me of Fight Club when he would come in and he'd be all beat up. He'd look at his coworker and gurgle blood.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly. It was similar to that, but the blood was on my shirt.
That's hilarious. So the modeling helps you to get sponsorship for your fishing team, get lit, because you figured out, first, you're a good salesman. Second, you've kind of understand how a lot of this works, and you bring it back into the fishing industry. And at what point do you kind of go, I don't want to model anymore. I think this tournament thing is a real deal, and this is where I'm going to place my focus.
Yeah, I think what I did with all of our successes in the tournament world, where I'm talking old school. I took newspaper clippings, I took photos. If there was a cassette or some kind of tape that someone recorded us, I would get a copy. I would somehow, and back then we didn't download, but it was kind of like I'd get a copy of whatever I could, and I started putting it together, and I saved everything. And everybody else was like, why are you doing that? Why are you wasting your time with this? I'm like, don't worry about it. I just know that we need it. You're going to want this one day. So I started putting it in like a photo album, kind of like a grandma back in the day, but it was my way of like kind of displaying what we were good at. So back in like 1990, 91, I mean, we were already like placing like in the top rung of the tournament, the billfish tournaments. So I would have these pictures of us up on stage, and then photos and trophies and this. So I put together this, kind of a binder. And then I would get called like, hey, Peter, we need a fisherman. Are you truly a fisherman? I'm like, yeah. So I'd book this job, and then I'd go to the casting and I'd say, hey, I have a boat too. Do you guys need a boat? Like, yeah, I'm like, I have a dog, I got surfboards, we can wakeboard, water ski. I mean, I'm like, whatever. I was like an all-in-one kind of like, you can shoot at my house too. I actually have a big yard. Let's do this. So I would provide everything. I'd show up to the job in my boat sometimes. And I remember this one client was like looking through it, and I think it was called Ex Officio Clothing. You remember that?
Yeah.
That had the bug spray woven
absolutely.
in? And they were like, hey, we should sponsor you guys. I'm like, I know. And so they made the shirts, and the team name was Get Lit, which nobody understood back then. Now it's like, one of the coolest names ever because people are like, it's lit, And back then, I remember on the radio, I'm like, yeah, it's Get Lit. One release right now. They're like, who? I'm like, Get Lit. And I remember my friends going, dude, why did you call it that? I'm like, trust me. It's all going to be okay. So long story short, I started getting sponsors. First, it was the shirts, then it was the reels, then it was the electronics, then it was the sneakers, then it was the line and the knife and the this and the sunglasses. And before I knew it, we had a full thing going. And then I'm like, okay, now it's time to get some money. That's when I started making proposals. And I would spend days on end making these proposals, and I would work on these Photoshop things. So I'm getting them right. And I'm like, no, not like that. And this, I'd send them out, wouldn't get a response. I'd tweak it to get that response. And then I would just finesse it. And all of a sudden I got a couple to bite. And once you get one to bite, the other one will bite because they go, well, if he bit, I want to bite. So then everybody started coming in. And before you know it, we had a 53-foot Viking that we had called Get Lit back in 2002. And I wound up having the boat wrapped in a sponsor logo. We're the first sport fish to be wrapped with sponsor logos. And then I had shirts for my entire team, all matching shirts. Nobody at that time was doing it back in like the 90s. Or 2000, I should say. And they're like, what are you guys doing? You guys are ridiculous with a wrap boat and logoed shirts. That's the bass guy stuff. I'm like, don't worry about it. I got a plan. This is what I'm thinking. So we'd win these checks and we'd be up on stage and all the guys would hold the checks in front of their logos. I'm like, guys, no. We either hold it over our heads or we hold it down by our waist. They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just please trust me. We go up there and we'd hold the checks in the air. You see all the logos. And I would tell the head lead sponsor that you need the best logo right up here because this is where everyone's always looking. They're not going to stare at your stomach,
right?
Which the bass guys do, but they put their big guy down here, down on the belly. So I had everything up here, like really tight to the neck. Even the printers were like, why are you printing so high? I'm like, because the checks are always blocking everything, but I want that guy to know he's number one for us. So I try, it's just, trial and error.
Yeah. And then that turns into a TV show. How?
Wow. Well, so I was always editing. I was always interested in making fishing videos. Like back in 1989, 90, I was making fishing videos. I went to Costa Rica. We had a handy cam. Remember the Sony handy cams? And of course, there was no music. So making these videos, catching sailfish and marlin back in 1990 in Costa Rica, bringing it back, I would hook it up to a boombox that had the music, hook it up to a TV so I could see what I was doing. So I had a handy cam hooked up to a VCR, hooked up to the TV, hooked up to a boombox, hooked up to the whole thing, and I'm like, click, 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 click. I'd hit like 4 buttons. I'm running around my apartment, and I'm like, oh my god, it almost lined up, and I do it again. So long story short, I was making fishing videos back in 1990 of sailfish in Costa Rica with music laid over top of it. Yeah, I remember I played one of the songs. Back then, it was a lot of Motley Crue. I remember I played Rat because it was like Shake Me.
Yeah.
It was one of the songs with Shake Me. The sailfish was shaking. I'm like, oh, this is perfect.
And then what would you do with those videos?
Nothing. I would just show them to friends and we would just, mess around with them. And, everyone's like, oh, these are really cool. And I have them laying around somewhere, probably in my warehouse in a box. But then, kept fishing and I kind of I started talking to the cameramen on the boats and the people around. I'm like, yeah, I really want to do a show. And I kind of put it out there. I think in life you got to put stuff out there to make it happen. You can't just one day just appear and go, I'm doing this. So slowly I was like seeding the idea that Peter Miller is going to do this. And since I was a little kid, I was like, I'm going to do a fishing show because I loved any kind of fishing shows. I fished since I was 3 years old. And I tried it a couple times, and I remember one guy was like, hey, Peter, maybe you're a little young. You're a little young to be trying to get into this. Because you don't
have... Who was
that?
Somebody that was discouraging you from getting into it.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, maybe you should wait a few years. You're a little hot right now. You might want to, relax a little bit. I was like, I was like, okay, well, maybe. And I thought to myself, I don't think so. I think I could do this. And then I talked about the ideas and the footage and how I wanted it to look, and I came up with a proposal. I remember way back, like in 93 or 94, I had a proposal. It was called The Big Fish. Just a dumb name, but it was a shot of me with binoculars sitting on a fighting chair looking for birds. That was the cover of this proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a guy that had worked for MTV. So he helped me kind of draw it up to make it look official. It was like a 4-page thing. And remember, Richard Gibson, the well-known photographer, the Marlin photographer, was the guy that took that picture of me. So I had like a good photographer taking a cool picture of me back in 94. And on that specific day, I hooked up with a like 600 plus pound blue marlin in St. Thomas. So it was just like, it was kind of cool. So I had some footage, I had some photos, so I kind of laid that in there. Anyway, so we had this MTV approach. Back in the day, MTV was doing the coolest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like fast cuts and, handheld cameras and big moves. And that's what everyone's doing now, all the YouTubers. It's like, in-your-face stuff. And so that was my proposal. And I didn't really do much with it. So it kind of settled down. But gradually, I started working into it. And by 2003, we won the World Sailfish Championship, which kind of propelled us, winning like, 6-figure kind of stuff. And then, we continued to win. We went to the podium, I want to say about 120 times over our career. And, some of the checks were, 400,000 or 500,000. So we had some really big wins. So we won the World Sailfish Championship in 2003, then 2007. And that's when, at 2007, we had camera crews on our boat all the time. And I told them all, I'm like, I'm doing a show. I'm getting ready to do a show. They're like, let me know. And sure enough, one of the guys, Ray Combs with REC Media, he's like, you just let me know, Peter. He goes, anybody can do a show, but getting it paid for is the hardest part because there's great fishermen. And I tell everybody all the time that you can be the best fisherman in the world. There's people that are way better than me. Like I never sell myself as the best, not even close. Like I know there's a million guys that are way better than me. I'm not the best host. There's a million hosts that are way better than me. But when it's all said and done, at the end of the day, it's how do you sustain it if you finally do it? And sustaining it is the hardest part. You got to be able to talk to the sponsors, negotiate, give them what they need, move with the ebb and flow of what's needed in the marketing world, content, photos, videos, appearances, blog posts, websites, Instagram, social, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you name it. So you got to kind of figure out what they need. And that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. That's really about life in general, I think. I mean, I go back to maybe a high school reunion. I just had my 30th. We're probably really close to the same age. I just turned 50 last weekend.
I just turned 50.
Did you?
Yeah.
When's your birthday?
Happy birthday.
Yeah, you
July
too.
3rd.
July 3rd? Okay,
Yeah.
So you got me by a month. I'm August 19th, just very recent.
Happy birthday.
But I go back to high school reunion or whatever, and I was definitely not the best student. I was definitely not the best athlete, but I was a far better athlete than I was a student. But there's I look at some of the people that were incredible students. They're working for someone now, and they have a good job, but they don't own the company, and they just have a good job. And they're so much smarter than me, so much. And I see it in lots of other fields where you see someone that isn't the smartest, isn't the most organized, isn't whatever the most technically gifted.
You're naming me. Everything you're saying is me.
Right.
Keep going.
And then, but somehow there's the secret sauce of being able to be good enough at something and being good enough at all of these other things and bringing these things together in a package that a lot of people can't. Those seem to be the most successful people. Don't you think?
I agree. And it's rare. And a lot of people, think that, I don't discourage anyone from schooling, of course. My son's going to USC in LA. He's doing really well. He's very smart, much smarter than I ever was. And my daughter is doing really well. She's going to private school here in Miami. And, I don't discourage, but, schooling is not the end all. It's not what it's all about. It's really about, people skills. Being smart is great, but, just being able to talk to people and have a relationship and be able to kind of, carry on a conversation, look somebody in the eye and tell them why you think your product is better than the next guy. It's not like you're always selling, but you have to be intuitive. You have to be aware of your surroundings. And a lot of people now, they're on their phones, they're, doing whatever, but being successful is a combination, like you said, of everything. It's like 10 different things and bringing it all in. And it's really grinding. It's working hard. Because in today's society, it's kind of ADD, kind of there's too many distractions. Everybody's on their phone while you're talking to them, and they're shaking their head going, uh-huh, yep, yep. We didn't have that back then, but now we do. So you have to really grab someone's attention, and it has to be impactful. It has to have sometimes a little wisdom in there. Sometimes it needs to be funny. So you kind of have to, be yourself, but be aware of what that interaction's all about. But long story short, you definitely want to, try to employ all the little different things to make you successful. It's not one thing. It's not, I'm great in school.
I read that book that Tim Ferriss just put out, is Tools of Titans. Have you seen that?
No.
It's like, I don't know, 5 inches thick.
That's why I haven't seen it.
It's you don't read it like a regular book. Like, it's got these different chapters, and right in the foreword, he says, look, I encourage you to skip around in this thing. And it's basically, he's done a podcast for a long time, and he's done a lot of different interviews and had a lot of different time with different individuals, from Arnold Schwarzenegger, Laird Hamilton, all manner of Silicon Valley executives and high power, high performing people. And so you'll go through and you'll like read a chapter on Arnold Schwarzenegger and what Arnold Schwarzenegger's habits are and what he feels like made him successful. And then you'll skip around to some other person that you've heard of. It's great for the behind the toilet. You just leave it back there. You read a chapter kind of a day. But there was one thing that I really picked up in that book. And there was this one person who's saying, it's not enough to be the best in the world at anything. If you take, say, for example, if you're the best brain surgeon in the world, and that's all you've got, that may not be enough. It may be, but if you create a surgery or you create a tool or whatever, then that tool needs to be put out there to all the different brain surgeons. And so there has to be a bit of salesmanship or a bit of communication skills. And so if you are the best in the world at something, but you can't communicate or you can't do this, he suggested that it's not enough to be the best in the world, that you also needed to be in the top 60 or 70% of another skill. Like, so you have one main skill, but then you bring something else to the table, whether that's you're fluent in another language, or you can build a website really great, or, you're a great photographer or something like that. So you can take that into just what we're talking about the fishing and the promotion of what you're doing. And let's just say, for example, you're a great fisherman. Well, you were a great fisherman. You obviously ended up on the podium, but you had lots of other skills. You were a great salesman, right? And that's really the secret sauce. And then when you can bring 2 or 3 or 4 of those other skills to your main skill, whatever that is, whether it's fishing or something else, that's where I see the success from so many people. Yourself, you're a great example, because you were excellent and proven at fishing, but that's not enough, right? There's plenty of people like that. That's what you were saying. If that's your only focus, then you'll never get the charters, or you'll never get the sponsorship, or you'll never, it just doesn't quite work out for you because you're single focused. So that's what I encourage my kids. It's like, my son's going to Belmont to study multimedia. Like, okay, that's great. You're going to become an editor, a photographer, a videographer. That's awesome. Those are incredible skills, and the market is primed for that. But you also, like, one of the things that I was super excited about is there's this entrepreneurship. It's like they show it as like a pyramid, and entrepreneurship's on the bottom, and photography, videography, editing, all these things are piled on top of it. That's what you need to pay attention to. If you can know how to run a business or sell, and you're an excellent photographer and you're an excellent videographer, that's where the success lies.
I agree, and that's a very good point. I spoke to my son about that the other day. When when he was originally applying to colleges, he's like, I don't know what to study. Maybe I should do this. I really love the movies. I love cinema. I love this and that. And I'm like, well, that's great, but you're going to need to be able to sell your wares. If you're good at that, you're going to need the ability to separate yourself from this other guy. Like, you could be that technical guy that nobody interacts with and being, twisting knobs and faders and this and that. Right. But for the most part, you need to be able to sell why you're good. Like, an attorney is going to tell you why, he's going to show you why you want him, or a doctor why you should use him if he's good. You need them to be able to sell themselves. So that's exactly why I told him he needs to go to the business school and minor in the cinema end. So now he's at USC. He's in the business school, the Marshall School of Business, and then he's also in the cinematic arts program. So now he's doing the entrepreneur stuff and learning about that. And then he's also doing the film and the editing. And it's kind of, I was editing way earlier, like I was really into it. And I think a lot of kids that go into school started way earlier, but he's kind of starting a little late, but he had a crash course on it because he's been around the sets with me. And then he wound up doing his own projects this summer. And he's using, learned all about cameras and learned all about mics and lavs and the connections and this and why this camera doesn't do audio, but this is a cinematic camera, but it doesn't have the inputs and this and that. So you use this. So there was like so many different factors. It was like mind blowing to him. And I really wanted to like help him and go, wait, this is how but I let him kind of figure it out on his own, and he did a great job. But they were pretty frazzled, when they were in the middle of it. But when they finished, they were so relieved, and they learned so much. So sometimes diving headfirst into it is great, but getting back to it, you got to be good at a lot of things, and especially now, you got to be a people person to succeed. You can't just be a great fisherman or a great captain. You got to be good with your clients. They're going to keep coming back on a photo shoot. A little extra effort. Hey, they're carrying a cooler. And there's, 10 women and 3 guys on the set, and one of the women's like dragging this 200-pound cooler. I'll walk over and drag it with her and put it in the car. It's like little things in life that you do, not to get the next job necessarily, but just little things. You help out, you be cool, you interact, you socialize. Those are big factors, and it keeps people coming back for more. So you have to give to get, but you shouldn't expect to get by giving. You know what I mean? You should give anyway. So that's what I try to do. But every now and then, you have a moment where you're like, oof, if I do a little bit of this, I might get a little of that. Let's be honest. Everyone does that. But for the most part, giving without expecting anything in return is awesome. And that's the way people should be.
How old are your kids?
My son is going to be 21 and my daughter is 14.
Okay, so we're right in the same. I have one in between those. I have a 20. My son's going to be 21. Then I have a son that is 19 also. And both of those boys are out of the house and went to college. And then my daughter just turned 15. So very similar in the challenges that we see. One of the things that I see, not only with my own kids, but a bunch of kids, is the effect of social media on communication. What have you, when we're talking about developing all of these skills, specifically communication, what do you think, or what kind of coaching are you giving your children as far as the use of social media and trying to maintain the communication skills that you and I grew up with? Like, how does that play into your world?
That's probably one of the hardest things to do. I mean, as you're saying it, I'm thinking to myself, I'm envisioning all the moments like here as we're sitting in my apartment. When we walk in here, the first thing everybody does, my daughter will sit on the sofa, my son will sit down, everyone's looking at their Snapchats, their Insta story, their stories, this, that, everybody's checking. And then, of course, that gives you a moment to check your own thing because I have, 20 social media channels between my Insta, Facebook. So I'm like going through on that. And then I'm like, all right. And then when I'm done with mine, I feel like it's okay to tell everybody to turn theirs off, which is not that cool because you should let them finish too. But there comes a time where everybody's just like, nobody watches a movie in its entirety. No one gets into anything like fully anymore, which is unfortunate, but that's the way things are going. I don't know if that's ever going to change, if it'll go back to the way it was, where people say, okay, we've learned from science that it says only 2 hours is good, and you allot that per day, otherwise your brain's going to explode. Someone's going to have to come up with something to scare people from it. But, even in the car, I picked up my daughter last night from her friend's house, and right away, she's Snapchatting. And I'm like, can you put down your phone for like a few minutes? She's like, yeah, Dad, I was just finishing up. And she's pretty cool with it. And my son, same way, he gets on his phone and they keep these streaks alive, right? On Snapchat. They'll take like pictures of themselves of just like an eyeball.
Yeah.
I mean, they're spending time like just an eyeball and like, hey, in a dark car. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? I mean, like, what is that doing? It's like, it's not doing anything. But long story short, again, I keep saying that, but I just, I tell them to be respectful on social media, posting pictures that aren't or unsavory, that's a no-no, obviously. My son started social media very late. Like he didn't want to do it. He went to the schools that they go to. They don't put up with anything and they check your stuff. Like they see your stuff and people will tell on. I mean, it's to the point where you better keep it really clean. So that's something I got to give credit to the school for. And then these kids don't want to be seen in the future like doing something silly, which is going to affect their career. And they know now that that's the case. Like 7 years ago, you kind of do whatever. 10 years ago, you do whatever, and you take a photo, and who knows where it went. Now the kids grew up in a world where they know that this stuff could really affect them.
Yeah. That's really amazing, because when I was their age, there would be no chance that I would be looking that far in the future and think, oh, if I do this really stupid thing in 12 years, when I go and do my first job interview, they're going to know about this and I'm not going to get that job. That was so far out there and away from any of my thinking ever. I mean, I was probably like trying to clean up like before I went to my first job interview, like the day before, not 12 years before. Yeah. So a lot of times I think that kids these days are getting kind of a bad rap about they don't pay attention, they're not hard workers, they're not all of these things. Yeah, but at the same time, they're having to forecast and think out 12, 15 years in advance about which photo they should put on social media. And of course, they're going to make mistakes. But man, if social media was around when I was a kid, two things. First of all, if tattoos had been in fashion like they are today, I would probably be covered from head to toe. I was very swayed the opinions of Hollywood. So whatever was into Hollywood, I thought, okay, that's cool. That's how you get dates. That's how you get girls to like you right there. Yeah. So whatever it was, a sweet mullet, I definitely was all about it. Yeah, definitely going to get one of those. But luckily for me, tattoos were not nothing permanent was really important in Hollywood back then. I mean, a pierced ear or something like that. But today, man, kids have so many more things to think about. Like, I don't know. I give them credit for that part of it, where there is also the part of the interpersonal skills that I think are lacking a lot in young people. But they have so many other things that they're so much better at than we ever hoped to be. We never even had those considerations.
Yeah, I feel like the kids now in school, like my kids, for instance, I know like they learned how to learn, which made them successful at being good at school, because the teachers taught them how to learn. Like I never really learned how to learn. I was kind of like, I would sit there and think about other things, and I was very distracted as a kid, thinking, okay, well, how can I do this? How can I do this? I was thinking about, creating things and this and that. But that's the one good thing that the kids do have. I feel like that's changed because they're more serious about their schooling. But yeah, the distraction from the social media, it's so easy to walk in somewhere, and if you're uncomfortable, the first thing you do is you walk in with your head down, checking your social media and pretending like it's your friend, like your friends are, whatever that may be. It's like at that awkward moment. I see it every day. Like someone walks in with their head down, they're just like typing on their phone at nothing. But that's what they're doing because that's their security blanket. So the phone has become that security blanket instead of looking around going, hey, which is not the easiest thing. Confidence, I feel like people are going to be lacking a lot of confidence because of the lack of interaction person to person. You could be very confident sitting behind a screen.
Right.
We all know we got those guys that'll send messages behind
Keyboard
a screen.
warriors.
Exactly. But face to face, that's a whole different world, and that's what's going to take you to that next level. Unless your business is social media, which right now there's a lot of people making a lot of money on social media, and those are their photos, and that's what they are and who they are. But I guess you just have to, you got to find your path and work hard, and I think you got to take time out and interact, and you almost have to force it. You got to find time where you just go, hey, we're going to go do this. What's really good? Going out on the boat, bringing it back to that whole fishing world. We get out to a certain spot in the summer, like when you go mahi fishing or sail fishing, phones don't work anymore. So we're down to hanging out, music on, and you can actually focus on something. And even if you're not talking, you're not just constantly hitting send and refreshing and this and that and this and that and just sending pointless, photos and comments to keep streaks alive. Keep streaks alive. My kids hear this, they're going to be like, Dad, you're really busting my chops on the streaks. I'm like, it's not just you kids, it's a lot of kids, even adults. But yeah, I think confidence and interaction with people is really, really, really important.
The natural world is huge for that. Like you say, getting the kids out on the boat. The phones don't work underwater for one thing. That's pretty sweet. So taking them lobstering, taking them diving, doing things like that, getting purposefully out of range is huge, and something that we try to do. But still, it's hard. It's a challenge because at the same time, we had this one moment where when social media was first coming around and the kids were getting their accounts and stuff, and it was kind of like there were a number of parents that were kind of like, no, it's evil. Don't let your kid have a Facebook account or something like that. And at the same time, I'm using this for business, and it's sending the kids to the schools that they're going to. And I'm like, you can't be afraid of it. You can't be afraid of it, and you can't just tell them to avoid it and tell them it's a bad thing. You actually need to tell them what the power of this thing is. Who knows how powerful social media is, but it's obviously incredibly powerful. And then learn how to harness it and learn how to use it for a good purpose rather than using it for a bad purpose. And we spent a lot of time talking to our kids about that. I don't know if it really sunk in or not, but maybe it comes back, a few years later. But that is something today. It's such an important thing that you have to use it. You can't be afraid of it. And for business, if you know how to use it, it's a huge advantage.
Yeah, and it's a learning curve, for business. You got to try to figure out what's successful, what's not, what time, what to say, the hashtags. Hashtags are a very important part of what you do and certain things. That's how it gets picked up. I'll never forget the first time I hit a hashtag for fishing. And that hashtag, it shows you the amount of people that have used it. And it was like 146 million. And I was like, whoa. And then you look at another one that says like a certain like logo from a sponsor, which has like 13,000 like uses. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to do that for them, but I also got to put this one in for that. And then it gets picked up, and all of a sudden, you have a chance at some of these posts going viral because of a simple hashtag. And then when it gets into that discover mode, here we are, we're talking about social media. You get me all fired up because we base so much of our work on our social media, and it's really, it's a really big part of what we do. I tell the sponsors that are just getting involved or wanting to get involved, they're like, oh, well, TV shows. I'm like, look, the TV show is the foundation of a vertical marketing platform. It's the TV show, it's integration in the show, it's the commercial, it's the billboard, it's the website that goes with the show with all of the aspects where you can get to everything from that website. So, then you go to, from there, then you go to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, blog, and then you go maybe to another website you have. And then I use a second layer of social media on my Peter Miller fishing. So I got the Uncharted Water with Peter Miller TV show, but then I use my Peter Miller fishing, and I kind of work the two of them together, and I hit volley back and forth with them because that's really who I am. It's Peter Miller. I'm doing events under my name, but then I have my show. So I kind of weave them together. So now you have a 10-piece platform, and then you go to appearances. And then you go to maybe producing and shooting a commercial for somebody. Maybe you're in the commercial. Maybe you're helping them do something. You're giving them ideas on what they could do and how stuff should look. Then you become like an advisor. Now you're a producer. So it's basically a full spectrum. You can't just focus on one thing. People go, oh, it's a TV show. TV shows are kind of getting dated. It's like, well, there's always a need for a TV show. It depends when you say where this TV show is airing. Is it airing on a small channel with little eyeballs, or is it airing on the Discovery Channel with 96 million households? So that's where Uncharted Waters airing. So you can say, hey, we got 96 million households times this many airings. You're looking at covering, 2 billion households over the course of these airings. And people go, whoa. And then you go, okay, well, here's my social media statistics. Here's my impressions on this. And I have a post that it has 1 million impressions in 1 week. And I showed that to them, and they're like, oh, my God. So you start showing these little things of what differentiates you. When you start Twitter, you get 0 likes, 1 like, 2 like, 3 likes. I posted one yesterday. It's got 140, 150 with like 30 or 40 retweets. These are legitimate things where people got to go, okay, we're getting some nice coverage. But then you need to, I'm going to get that. We have you see when you're a bachelor and you're living in the pad and you hear little beeping sounds in the background, that's a load of laundry going down while we're doing our podcast, while we're talking about social media, making big moves. Still got to have clean clothes, okay? And, I made, this was a big judgment call. You got your towel. You get out of the shower. You got your towel. You just washed it 3 days ago, but you just used it. So you could wash it again. You're doing a load anyway, but, it really doesn't need it. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going for it. So I got a towel in there, and it didn't even need it. So I'm like ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Stay ahead of the game.
You are on the ball.
Organize. You see this apartment? Is it clean?
Yes, very clean.
Well, you were coming over today. I had to clean it. Very, very, very spotless. That helps me focus on my next project. Like I'll come home from, I took a man out that had a dream from a cancer center in Sloan Kettering out of New York. They flew the family down to fish with me. I fished with them. The day before, I went out with the New York Yankees that wanted to do a uninterrupted with LeBron James. He has an uninterrupted show. So I had CC Sabathian and New York Yankees and we went out fishing. I took those guys out, and it's like concierge fishing because they have like food and drinks. So I'm at the grocery store. I'm shopping. I'm buying food and drinks and this and that and bait. We're catching the bait the day before. So all that prep, the Yankees, we finished up with that. I made a video from that, got home, went the next day, bought shiners. We caught 60 peacocks, jumped in the water, got underwater footage. I'm coming home from that. I'm going to the next event. I'm emceeing the Special Olympics Gala, black tie gala in a couple of weeks here in Miami. So, from doing simple things like doing your laundry to emceeing big events and stuff like that. We got to run the full gamut.
Yeah.
And clean towels are important.
That's funny that that you just kind of, on a side note, just dropped all of that, what you've been doing in the last couple of weeks. Because do you ever get the guy that comes up to you and then he's like, maybe you went to high school with him, or maybe they just know you from whatever. Oh, fishing for a living, huh? Must be nice. Like, yeah, if you only knew. Like, it's 4:30 in the morning until midnight, 8 days a week. And yeah, there aren't 8 days a week, right? You got to make 8 days in a 7-day week. And then with all of the social media and everything else, there's just so many more obligations to it. It is, to say it's a full-time job is an understatement.
I'm up till probably 2 a.m. every single night. And I don't sleep that well because I go to sleep with all this on my brain, from social media to videos to placement to this to sponsors. So I'll go to bed at 2 a.m. and I'll toss and turn at 5, and then at 7 I'm like, I guess I'm done here, and then I'll try longer, and then I'll roll around till whatever I can, unless I have an event I got to get to. But for instance, the other day when I took the guy Aaron from Sloan Kettering out and his family, I took my GoPro and I shot 25 videos underwater, and then I would pop up and film him, catching him. I'm actually casting a shiner, following the shiner from the dock as it hits the water, and watch the peacock come up and eat it and take off. And cool. I'd film the entire fight, and then I'd film him reeling it back up. His dream was to, hang out. We would talk and meet, and so I took him to the honey hole, and we wound up catching I think I bought 6 shiners, and I think we caught one on every single shiner. We could have caught another 100 if we had them. But when I got home that night, he's like, oh, how can I get those videos? So I downloaded them on my computer, and then I looked at them. I was like, oh, my God, these are awesome. And I thought to myself, if I don't do this, I'm going to have this sense of I need completion to get to my next topic or my next subject. So I sat there till 2 a.m., dragging them into Dropbox one by one, because if I drag too many, my Dropbox was like, I can't handle it. So I dropped 25 files in, and I named them. I was like, from cast to fight fish, or this one is a hand grab underwater, and this is the Midas cichlid one, and this is the family shot. So I labeled them right away. He got them, and he loved them. And that's also rewarding when you do something and you go so far out of your way to do that, and then someone says, hey, thank you. Those little simple thank yous are so nice. I got a thank you card, old school, like a kid these days. Never. But this was an adult I had a meeting. And she wrote, hey, it was great meeting you. I look forward to, watching your new show. And, if it was one of those. And I was like, wow, that's something. I think I'm going to try to get back to that. Writing a thank you card, man. It's a mind boggler. And I'll never forget it. People say when they get that thank you card from somebody out of nowhere, it just sticks in their head like, that's classy. I'm going to do that. That's my next move. I'm going to the store after this. Okay. Custom cards.
So how do you maintain balance in your life with all of this?
I don't. I have no balance. I'm trying my best to be a good dad and always be there for the kids. I call them and see them and tell them I love them and I support them and proud of them every day. Even though my son's in college and he's too busy to call me back or whatever. He's like, oh, I'm good. Everything's cool. I'm like, love you, buddy. Good night. Talk to you tomorrow. He's like, love you, Dad. And so we have that, which is great. The support. It's always been there. Been very involved with the kids to the point, where it's too involved, you're a micro, But because of that, we have really good communication, the kids and I. My daughter will tell me anything, and we have great talks. And my son the same way, and I never judge him. I'm like, if something's really bad, just tell me. I'm not going to judge you. We'll talk about it after. But if we got to, talk about something, I want you to let me know right away, and then we'll deal with it. And it's not going to be negative. I'm like, nah. I told my son, Niles, have I ever yelled at you? I think I maybe yelled at him twice, and he's 21. My daughter maybe twice, and she's 15 and 14. So, but when you say balance, it's really difficult. Plus, when you start a new show, so all of a sudden you have a new project. It's all new. It's new opens, new this, new sponsors, new look, new feel, new network, new everything. So it's like it's in a sense reinventing the wheel. So I've been reinventing the wheel for many, many, many months now. So I've been like frazzled. But now I just delivered episodes to Discovery. They have them. The billboards are in. The website's up. The store's about to go up. All these little things. It's so many dynamics. So every now and then I'll sit down. I'll go, take a deep breath. I should be able to chill. But then I'm like, oh, what's next? What's next? And then I start thinking, let me plan my new shoots. So all of a sudden, yesterday, I'm sitting there sipping a cup of coffee thinking, I'm good. I'm like, wait, I need to plan my next shoots. So my buddy called me. We're going now. I just booked Cabo. We're fishing for striped marlin and big tuna on my buddy's boat, the fish tank. And then we're going to Anguilla. My friends have a place there, so we're going to go shoot there. So we lock down dates for that. You check with your crew. You try not to, get in the middle of the holidays. And it's a never-ending battle of how you're going to balance it. So it's tough to stay balanced, and it's tough to stay present when you're not balanced because you're thinking about other things. So I find the best thing to do is call or when you are balanced. You know what I mean? Like, don't make a call when you're like all over the charts. I'm like, okay, now I think I could make some phone calls. It's really hard to have a conversation on the phone unless the car is the best place for it. That's when you're dialed in. You got about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You make a call, you catch up. But when I'm home or I'm working or I'm at my office, text and just kind of work. And I think the car has become the place to do it because texting in the car is a big no-no.
Yeah. Yeah, you sent me a voice thing. You're the only one. You're the only one that uses that feature.
That is so funny. It's the best feature ever.
I know. Well, I was like, what's this? Peter sent me some kind of thing, and it's like, hey man, I'm driving, and and you just went on for like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
I was like, hey, that actually is pretty good.
It's the best.
Yeah, and nobody uses it. I use the Bitmoji feature and the little GIF feature where I send my friends funny things from movies.
Yeah,
that's how I spend my time. That's how I stay balanced.
Those are really good. Those are really funny. I mean, little babies like falling asleep in their food. And I saw a really great one the other day. It was like a monkey and a dog like wrestling or doing something. It just had me crying laughing.
I'll look for that.
Maybe we'll become maybe you'll have your own GIF one day.
Yeah,
because you did something.
Yeah,
that's something to strive for. In today's society,
we gotta. It probably has to be super funny.
Yeah,
and it would probably involve pain from us. It would be someone would think it was super funny because we hurt ourselves very badly falling out of the boat or something like that.
Yeah.
That's probably my surest way to a GIF.
Yeah.
So tell me about the new show.
Okay, so the new show is called Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller, and it is basically exploring, eating, fishing, interacting, and it's just traveling around the world. Bass to Billfish is more of a local show. It's more of a Florida-based show. Florida was one of my biggest sponsors, and their demand was like, let's keep it in Florida. So I decided to. I had some interest from a bunch of different parties. I started getting calls from various groups out in LA, wanting to do an original on like Nat Geo, do an original on Netflix, do an original on Animal Planet, and then all of a sudden, producers were kind of calling from all over. And in my mind and on paper, I already had these domains and I had these trademarks for this show that I love the name. And it's very easy. It really flows, Uncharted Waters. And then I add my name to it because with branding, you always want to have your name associated with it. It could be Peter Miller's Uncharted Waters or Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller, whatever it may be. But you definitely want your name associated with your brand. It can't just, and I tell kids like another thing, like when they're doing videos, it's great that they're using sun protection and wearing a buff or a hoorag or a salt armor shield. But, when you're talking on camera, you got to pull it down. So it's kind of like put your name with your stuff, speak on camera without a mask on, and you got to get your name, your face, your brand out there. And if you have a really special pair of sunglasses, and those are the ones you wear, like my friend Zach Catcham on, he's got his little white, rimmed glasses that he and his girlfriend wear, and that's their thing. So that's great. But honestly, you want to be recognized without possibly your glasses. So what's really nice is I'm with Salt Life right now, and Salt Life came out with these new glasses. So I have the full line of sunglasses, and now they make reading glasses as well. So now you can, show up events and be like, hey, because you really just need to get out there and you need to, enjoy it. So this show is basically the first couple episodes are in Guatemala. you don't know what to expect when you get there. But I partnered up with Pacific Fins and the fisheries department there and went and shot sailfish, pitch baiting sailfish. So I got 3 cameramen and one guy shooting slow-mo, and it's very cinematic. So A7S, the Sonys, I believe they are.
Yeah.
So, you start to learn new things with new projects. You got new guys shooting a different style, but somehow they all came together. And what's really nice is when you look around and you see everybody shooting, and you don't need to tell them anything. And everyone's doing their thing, and then you see the footage. You're like, whoa. So Guatemala makes it really easy because the sailfish are there. Then the giant mahi showed up. Then we got into the yellowfin tuna. Not big ones, but I love eating yellowfin tuna. We have our blackfin here, which are great, but yellowfin's an upgrade from that. And then the next day we went out and we got into them right away and caught and then we got a 40-pound dolphin, we had 50-pounders chasing baits, but the little smaller ones would steal it. A 35-pounder would steal it. The 50-pounder would be like, what happened? Then finally my guy says, hey, Peter, why don't you break out the fly rod? I'm like, I haven't thrown a fly at a sailfish for like 28 years. So I have it handy. I got it laying on the deck and I got the fly line out and there he is on the teaser within like 3 minutes. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I flop the thing over, pulls the boat out of gear. I pop it a couple times and I'm looking at the sailfish. And he just swims right over to it and gulps it down. I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. And I hadn't done it in so long. I just kind of strip set like boop, boop. And he was on and he took off and I was like, oh, knuckle buster reels. I remember those. And I'm like, shit, then the thing takes off and he's jumping all over the place. And luckily, that fly line puts a lot of drag on these fish, as you know. And I got the fish to the boat in like, I don't know, 5-7 minutes. And they grabbed the leader, got the fly back. Then we hiked up the side of the volcano on horseback and roasted marshmallows on the steam coming out of the earth, with my son. He came with us on the shoot. He was like a photographer, social media guy. Then we visited a fishing fish market. Then we visited a local church. Went to the tortilla lady that's making them on the street, having a couple cocktails, sitting at the pool, So basically, we just did a little bit of everything, and it's exactly what I envisioned. It's exploring, fishing, eating, having a good time, and meeting people, and just kind of, just being and learning.
So is this a 30-minute show or an hour show?
It sounds like an hour show.
I know. It sounds like maybe a 2-hour show.
That's a 2-parter.
I can imagine. It's a lot to try to stick into a show.
Yeah, that's a 30-minute. It's a 2-parter. It's Pacific Fins Part 1 is September 9th on Discovery at 8:30 in the morning. And then Part 2 is the following week on Sunday at 8:30 in the morning.
Now, were you on Discovery last year with Bass to Billfish?
No.
Yeah, this is your first year. This is our first year, too.
Yeah.
So we've got 2 of our shows, Saltwater Experience and Into the Blue, over on Discovery. Really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. I heard some really good things from last year from the people that were there. I'm assuming you did the same.
Yeah.
But that sounds like that's right up the alley for what they need. Do you have a show that's before you? Do you know what show is before you?
Yeah, I just actually looked today because I think it's a week or 2 from now. And I think it's local knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of a similar... they're doing similar things. It's not all fishing. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of culture and stuff like that. That should be a good intro.
Yeah.
That could be really good for both of you.
And then I have the treasure gold guy, the guy that's looking for shipwrecks.
Oh.
All that stuff after me.
Okay.
So he's, I think that's an original for Discovery.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think it goes from me to them. I'm 8:30 to 9, and he may be like 9 to 9:30 or something in that regard. I just looked at the TV guide this morning. It's funny because everyone thinks like, oh, Discovery's doing your we're doing a lot of the legwork to get it there, to get it produced, to get it to them and make sure the specs are right. It's a lot of stuff. And then even writing the description of the show, what it's going to say in the TV guide. I'm like sitting there writing that. People think it's, this, the Wizard of Oz writing this stuff. Right. No, I mean, we're writing it. It's like, what do you want to call it? I'm like, well, Guatemala Part 1, Pacific Fins, jumbo mahi and sailfish. And Part 2 is, sailfish on fly and yellowfin tuna. So it's kind of like, and then you have this big description. They say, hey, no, that's way too long. That'll never work. So then you got to tone it down and you learn. Everything is a learning process. Every single day I'm learning about this business, yet I've been in it for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, it's changing every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was a period of where things were the same. Yeah. There's a period where things were the same with Bill Dance, Roland Martin, Orlando Wilson. A lot of these guys had a period where a lot of the shows were very similar. And there weren't big changes in television. Television stayed very, very similar. They may have changed networks, but we didn't have these things like social media come along and disrupt our world like we're having now. And it's not just social media, it's digital opportunities, things like Netflix and Hulu, and in the outdoor space, it's Waypoint TV, and all of these different things that every single day, it seems like, at the moment you think that you've got it nailed, and you really understand kind of what we're supposed to be doing and how to get your show in front of people, there seems to be a new platform. There seems to be a new opportunity, or an existing platform collapses or changes, or one becomes super hot and one becomes super cold, and all of a sudden, you have to adapt. You have to really pivot what you're doing in order to keep your stuff in front of people. So on this new show, do you have the rights to everything like you have on Bass to Billfish?
Yes.
And so what will you be doing on a digital delivery?
On the digital side, you mean like streaming, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
I'm going to be streaming it on Waypoint.
Okay.
Waypoint app, and that's a great way to get the shows across to people that wouldn't otherwise be having a cable package, for instance. They can get it streaming. I've had emails from people saying, I love watching your show on Waypoint because I get to binge your shows all at once. It's kind of like Netflix. I mean, I know me personally, if I get into a Netflix binge, I'm in.
Right.
To the point where I come out of here with giant bags under my eyes, food all over the sofa, empty cans everywhere. I'm like really holed up, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I will watch an entire series in a day and a half. I can't stop, and I think that's something that happens, and you come out of it, you're like, it's like, you're opening the windows for the first time and your eyes are burning.
And all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's only 4 more left. I've got to just push on through and get through this. I mean, I get like that too, kind of like, I did it with Breaking Bad. Like Breaking Bad on Netflix was being advertised to me like, here's something you might like, or watch next, or whatever. And I'm looking at this
15 seconds, if you don't hit this thing in 15 seconds, it's going to start, or 10 seconds, whatever it is.
Right.
And that countdown, you're like, I was going to try to get something to eat.
Next thing you know, you're back in. But I kept being served up this thing, and I'm looking at it, and it's Walter White up there, and I've heard people say Breaking Bad and all this. And so my family goes out of town for the weekend, and there I am on a Saturday, which is extremely rare. On a Saturday, I wake up, nobody's at my house. I get a cup of coffee, and I'm like, I might turn the TV on. Because as my kids are getting older, this time just did not exist. It was not there. And Saturday's the day I take off of working out usually, so I wasn't going to work out. And I'm sitting there literally with nothing to do. And I'm like, maybe I'll turn that on. And there's Breaking Bad again, right there. Maybe I'll try that. Bad move, because the rest of the day, just Breaking Bad, one after another, after another, after another. Then it was so good. My wife gets home, and I'm like, I loved it. You've got to watch this show with me. I'm already on season 3. So I started back over, and then we watch it.
It's that good that you could start the whole thing over with someone else.
Absolutely.
100%. I would watch it. Now you're saying it, I'm actually thinking, maybe I will. I don't even know. I might even start over.
There's so many shows like that I think are better in the binge thing because there's a story. Like things have gotten so good with the episodic things like Breaking Bad, The Walking Dead, all of these shows like that, to where they've written the whole thing and then they've broken it up into these episodes, and each episode is shot like a Hollywood movie. I mean, it's incredible, but there's so many details. There's so many details to a show like Breaking Bad that one flows into the other, and then one detail gets left out of the next 2, but then it gets brought back into the third, and I'm thinking, man, if I had watched this week by week by week, I don't think it would be anywhere nearly as good, because I wouldn't have remembered that detail. Right. It wouldn't have been super fresh like that.
You're right.
But I like the binge watching. I have people tell us that they just binge watch the whole season of Saltwater Experience or of your show or whatever. They just turn it on and watch the whole thing. And you would think that that's perfect for somebody that's doing tackle work. You've got 10 rods to rig before you're going fishing tomorrow, just turn on Bass to Bill Fish, and then it just rolls right through there, and they're just doing their thing, and off it goes.
I'm a big fan of it. And I remember when they did Bloodline down in the Keys.
Yes.
I got into that one, too.
Yeah.
I went wild on that for, I want to say, a couple straight days. I don't know how many seasons it was. Maybe it was 2 seasons?
I think it was 2.
2. And I wound up doing both seasons in like 2.5 days. But the only problem with that was a little depressing.
Yeah.
So you're binging, you're in a dark room, you're watching depressing stuff, and you come out of this, you're like, I don't think I can watch any more of this. I'm getting a little bummed.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, and you have to, then you're kind of like, well, I'm going to just finish it off so I can just go ahead and be bummed and then move on. Yeah. That one didn't end well for the Keys and didn't end well for Bloodline. That was a bad relationship at the end there. It went bad from what I can tell because like the I guess they decided, well, we've funded this enough. We're not going to fund it anymore. And so from what it looked like to me, then they didn't write very favorably for the Keys. Now they're like, there's this spoiler alert, I guess. It's a really good show. So if you haven't watched it, you might want to turn this off right now. But there's this guest house that is supposedly worth millions and millions of dollars. And this whole family is kind of banking on one day they're going to sell this and everybody's going to have plenty of money. Well, all right at the very end, they say that the water level is going to come up and it's worthless. And all the property in the Keys is worthless. And which is not true at all, by the way. If you're considering coming to the Florida Keys, it's not at all true like that. Probably where that house was is probably 9 feet, 10 feet above sea level. And while a hurricane could put some water in there, it's not coming up, and it's not going to be worthless. And that property is probably worth more than ever. But yeah, it didn't go so well. And that was bringing a lot of people in. I mean, you would go to the Green Turtle and they'd be selling a book, like all the places that Bloodline's been. And you could buy that book and then go visit all these different places.
You bring up a really good point there, which we haven't touched on, is the fact that, nothing is permanent anymore. Back in the day, for instance, I'll bring it back to shooting a commercial for Carnival Cruise Lines. That thing ran for 24 months, the same commercial, and it was like 3 or 4 commercials, and it was one of my best jobs I ever did. SAG checks, and it was incredible. Now commercials, it's like 13-week cycles. Boom, boom, boom. Shows, investments, sponsors, marketing teams, they come and go. It's like, oh, this one's doing this brand this year. Oh, they switched out. They got a new guy, and just when you find a new relationship at the company you're working with, a new partner, that guy picks up and leaves and goes somewhere else, and then the VP goes and the director of marketing. So it's churning. It's always churning, and you can never afford to get complacent and say, "Hey, I got this on lockdown. We're good."
Yeah,
because I never believe that. So I'm always looking. It's not like I'm looking for a new girlfriend. I'm just looking for not to get stuck where I thought I was set and be complacent. You cannot be complacent. So you got to keep grinding, working hard, and always kind of cultivating the crops and looking for, new ones, because around the corner, someone's going to change their plan or their vision, and it doesn't necessarily include you anymore.
Right.
So, even we're at a high level, but it doesn't necessarily matter. People, like you said, they said, oh, you're fishing for a living. It's a dream come true. I'm like, well, it is. It's better than me sitting at my printing company. But there's days where I think to myself, can you imagine if you could just flick the lights off at 5 p.m. at the end of the day and just go, hey, that's it. I'm done.
I'll
be
done for today.
Yeah, I'll be done tomorrow, and I'll go back in. There's days where I dream about that job because I did it, and I also worked in the studios. And when we flicked the lights off at the studios, and I'd leave as a kid, I worked there for many years in New York for Good Morning America, all my children, As the World Turns. You drive home, and that was it. You just turn your brain off. Now we're going 24 hours a day, and it never ends. But we do love what we're doing. We do love fishing. I do love making TV. I love social media. I love meeting people. I love talking to people, responding to people. It's nice if you can have a nice impact on someone, and if you can help someone, if you can give advice and, or take advice. I love taking advice from people. They'll, and it's just like this give and take. Don't get complacent. Keep grinding. You got to work hard, and nothing is given to you. Nothing's handed to you. You got to dig for everything you get.
Yeah. And even more today, like even the lockdown thing, like just a minute ago, I was talking about, there was a period of time where Roland Martin, Bill Dance, these guys, they did have it on lockdown. The days of TNN, the days of ESPN, the big changes were, this network is going away from outdoor TV. But TV was the thing. It wasn't like all of a sudden podcasts are big this year, or all of a sudden there's this new thing called Snapchat, or there's this new thing called Instagram, or Facebook is a thing. It wasn't like that. It was like TV is big and it's only getting bigger. And it was like that for a good 15 years. Now it's almost like you can't go a week without there being some kind of major technological advantage that has been put out there. Like all of a sudden, there's Netflix, or all of a sudden there is, I don't know, a new social media platform, or something like MySpace was huge and then it's just gone. It's not even a thing and people don't even know what we're talking about. But MySpace used to be huge. It was huge, and all of a sudden it was just over like that. And that's going to happen to one of our three platforms right now. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter are huge. One of those will go away. I don't know. It's probably going to be Twitter, unfortunately. I like Twitter. I don't spend a lot of time on it personally, but I think that it's a good platform and it offers people worldwide a great way to communicate. But, the other two, if they can't buy Twitter, then they're going to do their best to get ahead of Twitter. And then, or for whatever reason, the market is just fickle and people are like, I don't like Facebook anymore. And now it's all Instagram, or now it's all Snapchat, or now it's all the next thing. So I'm always constantly trying to figure out what is that next thing. Because when I look at Instagram, I saw Instagram and I was like, well, I like photos. And I've always thought photos are a great way to tell the story of what we're doing. So I'm going to jump right on Instagram. Our followers went up like a hockey stick. Like all of a sudden if you get on one of those platforms early, you get huge amounts of followers. Today, I see people starting. Well, you probably started your Uncharted Waters Instagram, and I would imagine, I don't know, I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but I would imagine that was way harder to get that started than Bass to Billfish because of the time that you got on.
Yeah, what was interesting about it is when you start something like that, you want to have like an organic platform, and you want to have it, so you start posting. And I remember I was down in the Keys. I mean, I only started it, my social media, April. And, May, June, July, August, we're only 4 or 5 months in. And I think I'm close to 4,000 followers
on Instagram,
which is actually pretty damn good. And the numbers are anywhere from 300 to 700 likes, for instance.
Yeah.
And if you can get, a 10% return on Instagram on likes and stuff like that, that's a really good number. Most people, are like 0.5%, 1%. A lot of people have a lot of bot accounts, so it's like the numbers don't match up. And people picked up on that. People really picked up on that, and then Instagram kind of closed a lot of stuff down. But it's also about your interactivity. You can't just post and that's it. So I enjoy looking at other people's posts. Mm-hmm. I enjoy tagging other people. I enjoy commenting on their posts if I like it. It takes, you got to give to get. Like we talked about that earlier. You have to be active. You have to reply to people. If people are going to make a comment on your picture, they deserve, if it's a legitimate comment and it's, it's not nasty or anything, but they deserve like either a like or like a thank you or a thumbs up or something like that, just to, hey, it's, a little give and take. And that's what I try to do with all of it. And now I feel like my social media platform on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on my new Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller is doing very, very well, like in a short amount of time. I didn't know how it was going to go, but my Twitter is better than Bass to Billfish and Peter Miller on my Uncharted Waters.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of remarkable. It's like 350 followers on Twitter.
Do you think that's because that's where you're placing your focus?
No, because I've been doing all of them. But I'm getting a lot of retweets and people are following it. I don't know if it's the name is easier to find. I don't know. When you say Uncharted Waters, people go, huh, it's a nice name. I like that name. So I don't know. I mean, for instance, like today, 350 followers on Twitter, but this one post has 150 likes.
Yeah.
So that's remarkable. That's like a 50% return on Twitter. I mean, I'm still boggled by it. It's all about the retweets, as we know. It's all about the shares on Facebook. When you start seeing the retweets popping and the shares popping and this stuff, and I'll go in and I'll like all the shares, like on Facebook. If I see 30, 40 shares or 70 shares, I click on it and who did it, and I'll hit like all the way down to say thank you. I appreciate it. because they think it's cool enough to share on their stuff. So it's a give and take, man. It's a never-ending give and take, learning every day about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is like we think a lot of times, well, we need some help with this. So let's ask somebody that seems to know a lot. And maybe they do know a lot about social media, but it's in a different context. And we haven't had a lot of good luck getting advice from someone that's a so-called social media expert that we can really apply to our business. I mean, I keep trying with the hope that they're going to give me this magic bullet of, oh, well, this is what you're doing wrong. Here, if you just change the way that you're titling these videos, oh, the views are going to go through the roof. Well, they go up maybe 3%, right? And it was a good suggestion. And we do retitle the things or put in different tags or whatever. But there doesn't seem to be a bullet. There doesn't seem to be this magic bullet that all of a sudden now you're doing things right and boom. It seems to be over the course of all those of social media platforms that there are some little details to pay attention to. But for what I find is like what you're talking about is that social media needs to be social. You need to actually like some stuff. You need to read some of the comments, which is really that is a weird thing because sometimes, and I find that YouTube may be the one that is the most unfriendly, maybe. It's kind of an environment that yields itself to more negativity in the comments or whatever, for whatever reason. I don't find that on Instagram or Facebook. That seems really good. Twitter, I don't ever have a problem with that. But when you're reading these comments, it's like, yes, you want to be social. Yes, you want to give the like. Yes, you want to do all these things. But you also can't get caught up in this guy going, oh, you don't know how to tie a knot. You don't know how to bout a sailfish. That's not the right way to hook a sailfish. Like you would know. I mean, you won the World Sailfish Championship twice, right? 3 times. But you don't know how to sailfish. And some keyboard warrior there telling you that you're doing everything all wrong, but they can hit you at that one point during your day when you're like, oh, maybe I don't. I obviously have a lot of work to do. This is really bad.
Well, you put yourself out there, putting everything you got out there, and you put a lot on the line to do it. Perfect example is when I did a Make-A-Wish show, and the kid said he just wanted to fish 12 to 14 hours a day for 2 days. And that's what we did. And we fished so hard and it was very rewarding. We caught like 12 different species. It was emotional. It was everything. And the show aired and all the comments are coming through like really positive. And I get an email from a guy and he goes, man, that show, and he has like the YouTube version of it. He goes, that show, I was so disgusted about how you were pushing your products and all your products you use on your show during the show is disgusting. I'll never watch your show again, and blah blah blah. And I saw the link, and I'm like, I think that's the Make-A-Wish link, where I was up for like 4 straight days, like trying to make this young man's wish come true. And I put everything out there, everything I could, and I was like so fried I was like I'm not cramping up at night. I remember I was like, I need to get some I need to go to the hospital, get an IV. I was so dehydrated. I gave everything I had, and this guy writes this thing to me saying, I can't believe I'll never watch your show again. Blah blah blah. I looked this guy up. He's a brain surgeon, and I looked him up, and I wrote back to him. I said, I appreciate your comments. I'm not really sure what you're referring to. I said, this was a Make-A-Wish show, and this boy wished to fish for 2 days straight with me. We fished 12 hours a day. We caught 12 species. We went all in, and we did this activity and that activity. And it made his dream come true. He said it was the best 2 days of his entire life, and he was like 17 years old. And I said, that's what it was all about. And I said, I don't have a reel sponsor, a plier sponsor, a line sponsor, so I don't know what you're talking about, But thank you for your comments. But just my main goal was to make this kid's wish come true. And he wrote back to me, I'm very sorry. I see your point. Blah blah blah. So what I find with the negativity, if you address it, it kind of it squelches the anger. And I'm not saying that's what we always have to do, but every now and then, like specific things, they get under they get under your skin.
Yeah.
So I comment back, and it worked out. But like you said, being social on the social media platforms is a big thing. And then someone says they're a social media expert. That term is really thrown around very loosely. A lot of social media experts are working for big corporations doing their social media, and they get like, 30 likes or 100,
Right.
and they're following a 0 and their pictures are, and it's, I mean, you and I could go in there in a month to some of these companies and go, okay, let's look at what we got going here. What's our target? And let's knock this out. We know what to do. I mean, we spent so much time doing it.
Right.
So it is thrown around loosely. So yeah, I've heard some people say you got to pay a little money to get that search engine optimization going. Like if you invest in a lot of these big companies and a lot of these celebrities, they've done that. They've put up some money to get that search engine going. So it's at the top, it's at the top, it's at the top. Or you could be lucky enough where you take out that, celebrity and you have that moment. I'm weird about it. Like if I do take a celebrity, I almost go the opposite route, which most people wouldn't, but I'm almost like the other day I took the Yankees out, and they had a picture, they had a dolphin. And my initial instinct was to run in and get in the picture, and they get tagged all over. And with I was like, you know what? Let me just stay out of the way. I went home that day and it was a weird kind of cathartic experience because I didn't push. I didn't try to I didn't try.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was weird.
Yeah, but that's because you're seeing the bigger picture. You're seeing, okay, what is this all about? Is this all about me? Because no, it's not all about you that day. That day, it's about the Yankees. It has Make-A-Wish involved.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you just cram your head in there. It's not effective.
Yeah.
It's not going to be effective for them. They're probably not even going to share it because it's like what they really needed was the picture of the 3 guys or whatever having this experience, which eventually you will be brought into. But if you just cram yourself in there, you ruined the picture for them. You ruined it for you. It's not good. Now, when they say
organic,
when they're like, hey, well, what about Peter? He's got to get in here.
Yeah.
And then it becomes, okay, well, we had this experience because of this guy.
Yeah.
And then it becomes really important. But yeah, social media is a funny thing. And honestly, probably if it wasn't for the show, I don't think I'd be on it. I don't think that it's just not something that I'm really all that interested in on a personal level. And I could totally go without it.
Yeah.
But because of the show, it becomes an all-consuming part of our workday or my workday.
It's a huge part of your business.
Yeah, huge part.
The show is one part, the social media is another part, the appearances, the this, the that, the blogs, everything you do is an integral part of what you do, so you have to do it. And that's, it is very time-consuming. But if you bring someone in, like we talked about, like a social media expert, they don't know you. They don't know the terminology. They don't know how it goes down and what to say and how to do it. And, and they may not edit it right. They might show something that's not right. Like, you might have another boat in the picture with, you and I are both Mercury, and then, I'm holding up a big fish and at the dock and the guy behind me, he's got a big, Yamaha behind me. And that's my social media person thinks that's the shot.
Right.
And they send it off and you get a call and goes, what is this?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to me, but I know people that it has happened to. So I'm very aware of it. I just did my show open for my new show, and my guy laid in these graphics, and it's like flying. It's really nice 3D animation with like kind of like gold kind of, rusty kind of parchment paper looking stuff like moving across it. And this one part comes down and goes poof, right over top of my Mercury engine. And it says fish, like right on my Mercury. And I called him. I said, that's one of my sponsors. I said, you got to move that up, out of the way. It's like, why? It's like, then I got to change this. I said, just because. Yeah. And then another thing, like a Salt Life logo, the show is presented by Salt Life. The Salt Life logo was squished and it was like mashed. When you take a logo and you try to size it and all of a sudden it squeezes it, a lot of times it doesn't, but every now and then you get one of those programs that mashes it and it was like squished. And I looked at it and he finished and the show was ready to go. I go, guys, I'm sorry. He goes, it's going to take me like 2 hours to recompress it and do it. I go, guys, we got to do it right or we don't do it at all. That's what we have to do. And I will watch that show 100 times before it goes out the door. And still there'll be something wrong, but I still watch it like 100 times. I look at everything and I look at the billboards and the logos and the slogans. And, you always got to be aware of so many things. You can never turn off,
Yeah.
But again, it's better than digging ditches, man. It's better than, doing a lot of different jobs. And I think, we're lucky because we love the overall product and we loved video. We love fishing, boating, and all that stuff. But it is, at the end of the day, it is 16 hours a day. It's never ending. It's, Sunday to Sunday, whatever. There's no day of the week for me where it's like, oh, you got a weekend off. I'm like, no, that's when I'm grinding. I didn't leave my place for 2 days. I literally worked for 2 straight days, and I was like Uber Eats. The guy was coming to my door, and he's like, have you not changed out of your sweatpants yet? It's like, what are you, like, like a 100-year-old man? I'm like, just give me the food and get out of here. I had a box of pizza on my table the other day with like Coronas, and I'm binge watching and writing proposals and contracts, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta go to sleep. And I looked in the mirror and I looked like 100 years old. I literally did. I was like, oh, I gotta get out of here. I gotta get some sun.
Well, your work ethic and the work that you've put in is obvious to everybody that is watching. In my opinion, I think that you've got a really good product, and you're a really cool guy, man.
Thank
I appreciate you sitting down with us. And so, if I were to ask you what your goal is for this year, what would you say?
I would say to take a deep breath. That's number one. That's my goal. I've been telling everybody. Take that negativity, whatever it is in your life, and kind of push it away and forget about it, because it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You got to push the negativity away. So take a deep breath, push some of that negativity away, have some meaningful connections with people that you care about. And, when it comes to work, put out a good product that you're proud of, that you're excited about. And when you're not excited about a product anymore, or you become complacent and it's just you're grinding it out, it's time to maybe think about things, maybe change it up a little bit, ratchet it up. Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller, that's my ratchet. That's my high-speed ratchet. I'm like, rick, rick, and I've been wanting to do it for a long time. So that's my goal. And go back to the gym. Haven't been to the gym for months. I go back for about a week and I feel good. And that's another thing. If you're feeling stressed, or you're not sleeping right, a little bit of workout always helps. You know that better than anybody.
Man, that's it for me. If I don't do that, I think I would go insane. For me, that is definitely in the top 3 most important things in my life: the workout and then the breathing. I'll have to show you the Wim Hof breathing one of these days, because that is has been really profound. You do this deep breathing exercise that it just sends all that negativity away for me, and
Wow.
It's been super, super profound. But look into that, and then we'll catch up after you do the Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller on the Discovery Channel. You got to check that out. Coming up probably about the time, I think we're about 3 weeks ahead on this podcast. So this podcast should be coming out around the same time as your show's coming out on the Discovery Channel. What's the date?
It is September 9th, the premiere on Discovery Channel, 8:30 a.m. on Sundays.
All right, and tell everybody how they can get in touch with you on your 20 platforms. I think we have 20 minutes left, so you might be able to just squeeze in all the places they can find you.
Yeah, we got UnchartedWatersTV.com. UnchartedWatersTV.com is my website. And then Instagram is Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller, one of the longest names of all time, but that's what it is, Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller. And then on Facebook, Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller. And then on YouTube, Uncharted Waters with Peter Miller. So basically, I'm in there. The only thing that doesn't have the Peter Miller is my website, UnchartedWatersTV.com. So you can get to everything from there. And,
you can get to Bass to Billfish and Peter Miller Fishing and all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, check him out. Peter Miller, he's started as a male model, then a sailfish world champion, and now he's creating a dynasty production business of television. Oh, and he's a social media magnate.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
That's awesome.
See you. One more thing I want to tell you about. We've done a little bit of work to create a website called TomRowlandPodcast.com, www.TomRowlandPodcast.com. That's Roland with a W, TomRowland podcast.com. And it's a dedicated site for the podcast. One thing that it includes is a book club. I have never really liked reading when I was a kid, but later in my life, I've really grown to love it. I love reading and love audiobooks. I love listening to books, and I've learned so much about it. And usually when we have a guest on, I'll ask them what some of their favorite books are, what they're reading right now, and whether we talk about that on the air or off the air. I have taken that list, compiled it on the website under Book Club. And if you buy through that website, you'll be taken to Amazon, just like you would if you just typed in Amazon.com and take you to your own account. And if you buy, Amazon is very nice to give me a little kickback, and you can support the podcast like that. Books cost exactly the same. Amazon just offers an affiliate program, and I am now part of that. So if you want to buy any of those books, you can support the podcast too. Awesome.